Hello everybody again. We are here with Mrs. Schaake, who is a sort of friend of Lo Spazio della Politica because she has been invited to Butterfly Europe to talk as a guest speaker. And now we are at the Digital Agenda Assembly and we are going to ask you some questions about the workshop we chaired some minutes ago. So it was about social networks, which are the 2 or 3 main outcomes. What are people here interested in?
We had a very lively discussion with entrepreneurs, a lot of young entrepreneurs who are setting up social networks in Europe to compete with the bigger and well-known names from the United States. And we had people from Iran and from other countries who shared their experiences of both the opportunities and the challenges that social networks bring. Because on the one hand, social networks allow for more communication between people, mobilizing people for freer expression, for sharing information, access to information, for sharing the documentation of human rights violations. There's a number of opportunities for people, but there's also some threats that we have to be aware of. We see that people are being tortured for their passwords, that people cannot always be certain that the personal data and the information that they have in the context of these social networks are actually safe. That's a problem in Europe, but it's even a bigger problem when you live in a country where the government doesn't want free expression to happen. So we talked about these challenges and we also talked about the economic opportunities of social networks and the fact that actually there are some barriers in the European market. There's too much regulation, is what the entrepreneur said, and I can understand this. There's a lot of bureaucracy and unnecessary rules where we have to make sure that Europe is an open market and that the digital European market is completed. So those were some of the issues we discussed, and those are also some of the priorities I have. On the one hand, to ensure that human rights and fundamental freedoms are guaranteed also on the internet, and on the other hand to make sure that Europe's digital market is completed so that it can be a benefit to all those entrepreneurs, but also to students, to people in the cultural sector, to all citizens and to all consumers in Europe. And we have a long way to go before all the barriers are taken down.
Also because we saw that it was 20 for Spain, for instance, the social network in Spain, and there you mentioned someone about Iran. Is there new things going on in Iran, for instance, because you are a great follower of what happened in Iran?
Well, in Iran, I think there's a continuing challenge to find oxygen, to find freedom for people. But the regime is very, very violent and very repressive against people. So social media are increasingly difficult to use there because all the networks are being monitored, censored, centralized, infiltrated. So it's very important that people know what they can expect, that they're not misled to believe that some of these means of communication are actually secure where they are not. And this is something that goes for the EU to say. We talked about young people on the internet and how some decisions that you make when you're very young and you're not so much aware of the rest of the world can have an influence for the rest of your life. So to develop e-skills and to develop education, for people to make better informed decisions, both when they are users of social media, but also when they are politicians deciding about social media is very important. So we talked about the need for knowledge and education.
Media literacy and ICT literacy is not sufficient. I mean, you have to go forward.
Yes, you have to understand how fundamental rights and freedoms, but also responsibilities translate online. What are your rights? What are your responsibilities? I mean, you cannot just look to the government to solve all your problems. We have to create a framework in which these rights are guaranteed, so that not your internet service provider can suddenly cut off your access to internet if they suspect that you might be looking at something that could be illegal. I mean, that is a stretch that I don't want to see happening. I think that judges and the judicial branch is responsible for assessing what content is legal or illegal. But we need people to understand the landscape they're navigating in and the responsibilities they have, the threats that are out there, and we all recognize these very, very long terms of use where you're scrolling for about 10 pages and you don't really know what you're signing up to. So we need a bit more understandable, clear-cut language so that people are not misled and so that they can make well-informed decisions based on transparent rules. I think that was one of the important outcomes of this.
You mentioned government, you mentioned transparency, you mentioned accountability. We are in the final part of the workshop on open data. What's your thought and meanings about open data? What's the real local government implication? What's the real move forward to switch from e-government to we government?
Well, open data and open government are an important part of that. We have a lot of information in the hands of governments, which are collected with public money, and which are also in the public interest, without being dangerous for security or for people's fundamental rights, but raw information that is simply of use to citizens. And I believe it would be fantastic if governments would give back that data to people. It would ensure more transparency, accountability, but it would also allow for entrepreneurial plans, the development of new services, and simply better use for citizens with this data. Sometimes we may not know yet what will come out, but I have a lot of faith in people. So I think that they will craft and build and hack and mesh a lot of interesting products with these open data. There are some challenges, we're not naive about this, but we do think that there are a number of opportunities, and D66, my political party, will certainly make a big push for more we-governance. We have the opportunities in the technologies, we just have to bring on board the political will and start trusting people again. Sometimes it seems as though government believes people are there for them, but the government is there for people. And this thinking needs to be reversed.
So what's the next initiative the Parliament or you will initiate or carry out?
Well, I will keep you informed. This summer I'm scheduling some studying for myself, and I will come back with an open data plan next year.
Thank you very much for having this interview, and see you soon.
Okay, bye.